And one of the best lessons I've learned from him was the greatest obstacle you're going to have to overcome as somebody who is a creative entrepreneur, a solopreneur, is going to be, how do I make a system so that I don't have to be the sole decision maker? Because more often than not, if you're an entrepreneur that's looking to grow, you are the bottleneck. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's no other way to
Yeah.
put it. So at the beginning, it's very easy to identify because you're the only person in the system. So obviously, I am the bottleneck. But as you start to add one other person, it's like, your sole job is to serve that one person. You now work for them, actually, even though you're the one paying them and they work for you, but you actually work for them.
Wow.
And you have to set them up. You have to set them up so that they can do the role specifically, do the role well, and repeat it. Because the only thing that you're going to be able to scale is not your name. It's not even like your logo, your brand. The only thing that is scalable in your business is a repeatable product or service.
The pursuit of excellence is something we're all striving towards.
I want you to focus on what you do best.
You need to have an approval. How many approvals? What are the steps?
It's really about listening.
If it's not documented, it's not done.
Thanks for tuning into In Systems We Trust, the show where we dive into all things systems and processes and hear from the professionals that are using them to change the landscape of their organizations every day. Welcome back to another episode of In Systems We Trust. My name is Marquis and I am your host. And today I am speaking with Bart Anestin. Bart is the owner of Creative Partner, a branding and web design agency and host of the More Life podcast. A designer and problem solver at heart, he's passionate about business and brand building through visual storytelling. Bart also happens to live in Canada, just outside of Toronto, with his wife and 2 kids. Welcome to the show, Bart. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here, man. How are you?
I am well. Also, I'm glad we finally got to do this. I know we were back and forth for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
schedules changing. I think I didn't show up at one point, and so I'm thankful that you were able to put up with me and still agree to come and have a conversation.
Right. Well, I'm glad to be here. I love listening to this, so it's an honor to be on the show as well.
And now here you are on the other side. Perfect. So would love to get some more background on, what Creative Partner is. What do you do? What does your agency do? Would love just some more info there before we get started.
Yeah, we started in 2017, and we started as a media company, I would even say, probably. We did everything, and that's kind of the mode you have to be in to get things off the ground. We did a lot of video production. I own a lot of video equipment still to this day that I don't use nearly as much. We did a lot of graphic design, branding, web design, and consultations. So I had worked in the church slash nonprofit space for almost 10 years as a communications director. And then when we started the company, I was just trying to find my bearings. And we quickly, within a year or so, realized we can't keep doing all the things. And so we specialize in branding and web design. We do front-end web design and development, branding and strategy for clients. And that's kind of how we approach all of our work, is through the strategy lens. And then we go from there. We go whether you need some branding or a website. That's usually the first step for a lot of emerging medium-sized businesses. And that's kind of who we target, is interior designers, construction workers, medium-sized, that are looking to level up and actually use their website or their brandings to communicate with their audience in a very human approach, and not just like brand and client. So we try to break it down for people and make it more natural and conversational.
Amazing. Your website says, when you land there, it says, stop being unnoticed, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so important, in the branding space, to have an identity, to understand what that is, and how you stand out from the crowd. Really cool to see that. I'm curious, you said earlier that, you're doing a bit of everything, and you said at one point you made the switch to kind of like focus in. What was happening at that time, right? You get started, you want to do everything. You want to offer your services to everyone because you're just getting started. You need to get some experience under your belt in the early days. It's so familiar for founders of startups. So what was happening at that point that made you realize we can't keep doing this? And how did you decide to focus in the area that you did?
Yeah, I feel like I like to tell people I'm a recovering workaholic. I work a lot and I enjoy it. I really do. So knowing boundaries for that ends up being more complicated when it becomes a passion. And you're also in the exciting world of entrepreneurship. You read Crush It by Gary Vee and you think you can conquer the world. And you're like, well, I just need to work harder, faster, longer, and be more dedicated. And I'm going to reach the success of everything that everyone's talking about. And you can only do that for so long. This happened, me starting this company in 2017, that would have put my daughter at 3 years old, okay? And family kind of sets boundaries for you, or at least it tries to. If you don't listen, you might not have a family in the end. But, family puts those boundaries where, well, I also want to be at home for supper with my family. And I also want to help with bath time and putting the baby to sleep and all these different things. And you start to have these conflicting priorities, because it's very much a priority for me to provide for my family. As a man, I feel like that's my duty. At the same time, I feel like in the modern day that we live today, being a father and what that means, there's more than 50 years ago what is expected and what men provide to the household. So to me, it was like, okay, I don't want to do it the way it was done 50 years ago. Man goes off to work, man comes home, expects a hot meal, and then he goes to bed, and then does it all over again. I want to be involved. I want my child to know who I am. And so I had to reconcile those two different priorities and be like, okay, I do want to be successful, but what's even more, valuable than monetary or public success? It's that home success. Being in a healthy relationship with my family allows me to even feel more satisfied with my work. And so we were doing so many things and pushing so hard, and I was working, so many hours, as you do when you're a freelancer, because you have to do so many different things. And then I started to have that time where I'm like, okay, I got to set more boundaries and limit this. So if I'm going to limit what I offer, I darn well better be an expert in it, the few things that I can offer. So it's easy to kind of do anything at a lower quality if you're going to do a lot, right? But if I'm going to do less things, but I need to increase my revenue, that means I got to make sure that like my quality of my work is excellent, my customer service is top notch, because there's fewer clients I deal with now, and it's not just like getting someone who found me on Kijiji. I can't keep doing those type of work because it's going to give me $50 and it's going to cost me a big headache. So those type of things kind of like reined me in, because I think I might be a millionaire right now. I am that guy who thinks that I could be a millionaire by now, but I don't think I would be happy. I don't think I would have a family. I don't think my kids would recognize me. So I didn't want that for my life, because I know that I have it in me to be successful and to be driven and passionate. And success means a lot of things for many different people. But yeah, that's kind of what made me focus, because I was like, okay, you're definitely talented in many things, but that doesn't mean that you should offer up all of your most valuable resource, which is time, to those things. Money is a renewable resource, so I can make more money later. I can make more money faster and smarter with more information, but I cannot make more time. Time is finite, and there's no way that I can change that. And those formative years for my family, when we were just kind of coming up, I really wanted to be there and to be involved.
You're really tugging at my heartstrings there when you talked about family. Anyone who knows me knows I am family first in everything. I mean, when I got my agency started, back in 2017, 18, probably the same time as you, left my job. It was so I could stay home and be with my family, right? And as you develop, you get busier. Like you said, you're a recovering workaholic. I'd like to, I wouldn't like to say, but I think I fall into that category a little bit. And in the earlier days of getting started, my kids are 2, 3, and, they would want to play. And, on the weekends, I would be catching up on work because it was so fun. It was driving every step forward in the business that you're working on, not in. It was like, why wouldn't I want to spend every waking moment doing this? Until your kids are like, hey, Dad, can you not work right now? Can you put your computer away? Right. And, it is so important, right, that they understand that they are first, that you are there for them, and that, with the work that is important, they're also a huge focus. I'd love to know how you are, protecting your time. You talk about time being finite, money is renewable. What are you doing? How are you structuring your day, your weeks, your meetings? What are the expectations around your time as it relates to your staff, your clients? What does that all look like?
Yeah, great question. I want to also even piggyback off of something you just mentioned. I have a hard time with the mixing of spaces. So I love that you can stay at home. I cannot work at home.
Yeah. Right.
And so I work outside of the home, and I don't think my kids, if they have, it's probably very rare, or I'm doing our budgeting. I don't think they've ever seen me at my laptop on a computer, working. Wow. When I'm home, I don't open the computer. And that's probably the hardest thing, because when I worked a regular job, 9 to 5, I would always take work home with me, and I'd be doing work. But they were babies, by that time they didn't know any different. But now, in the last maybe 3 years, I don't think they've ever seen me working from home or on the computer, I'm deep in work. Not to say that that's the best thing. It's good for them to see the work. They've come and visited me at the office. But for me, my personality type, if that's an option, that computer is going to be open, Asana is going to be open, email is going to be open. So that's part of the reason why I got an iPad. So when I'm at home and I want to just go on Facebook or watch a movie and the TV's being used, that's where it's okay, I got an iPad. I can still do media consumption and simple stuff like that. Check the the phone bill, all that kind of stuff on the iPad. But the laptop, it's so addicting. So how I've done a lot of through the years reading on habits and time and management of time. I try to keep it very simple, because there's so many different approaches to how people do their own time management. I try to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, no matter what day of the week it is. I'm that guy. I'm 35, and I can't stay up past 10, 11 o'clock. Otherwise, I'm just gonna feel horrible, and like a little kid, like a toddler, even if I go to bed at midnight, I'm still gonna get up at 6 or 6:30, around that time, and it's just gonna hurt. It's not gonna be good. So I might as well go to bed at the 10:30 and get up at the 6:30, and that's what I kind of do to make sure that I feel rested. I'm around the 6 to 7 hours. Anything past 7 hours, my body literally won't let me stay in the bed. I have to get up and get out. It starts to hurt laying down that much. I don't know what it is. I'm good with naps afterwards, but I don't necessarily like to be in bed that much. I go to bed at a certain time, wake up, and we use, or at least myself, and now I start to talk about it with my staff in terms of culture, is time blocking. How do we block out times for specific tasks so that we're not always doing the busy work? If for those of you who understand the getting things done method, if it takes less than 2 minutes, do it right away. But then anything more than that, you can be in a little bit of a loop as to where does this fit and where should I do it. So for me, first things, 7:30 every day, I do emails. I get them all out of the way, and then I don't check it again until 3 o'clock. So unless somebody messages me and I'm anticipating an email, I'll check it. But I'm very good at closing that tab, and then I'll know when it's time for me to check emails, and then I'll spend another 30 to 40 minutes doing everything inside the email. And also even how I structure my email. You can in Gmail, you can have multiple email boxes set up. So I have 3, one that's called follow-up, one that's called waiting, one that's called read later. So I go through everything in the main inbox, and I assign them a label for each one of these things so that the inbox is always at 0, and then these 3 labels are the only things that I care about. Am I going to take an action, like a follow-up action? Is this something I'm waiting on somebody else? Or is this something that I need to read later when I have leisure, like those newsletters that you get, but you still want to read them. It's not junk, it's not trash. We talk about that with my team a little bit just to make sure that they're focused as well. For all of our work messaging, we use Slack. And Slack is great because I tell all my vendors and contractors who work with Creative Partner, put it on your computer, don't put it on your phone. And that way, when you're working, the messages will show up. But then when you turn your computer off and you're out having a drink with your buddies at Saturday night, and there's no messages that go through. And that way you can have that boundary of I'm working when I'm working and I'm not working when I'm not working. Because oftentimes that can creep where all of a sudden you're working when you're not working. So why would these things, because Slack, there's apps and there are what's that called? Integration. So you get a notification of just that somebody did something, and all of a sudden now you're in Slack and you're looking at what else has been done, and here's this conversation, and someone posted a funny GIF, and all these things that are happening at the same time. So I don't put it on my phone. I keep that stuff separate. I block out my times. Like today is a Thursday. We're recording this. That's when I do all my meetings. I schedule all my meetings on a Thursday. On Wednesdays, there are 0 meetings. On Tuesdays, I do my check-ins with the team, and we do all of our business marketing for the agency. And then Friday, I do any type of catch-up work, accounting work. So we just have set days that things happen so that I don't ever have to wonder, when am I going to have time to do the tasks that I have laid out? So like I mentioned, we have Asana. Asana has a bunch of things for me to do. Usually I'll schedule things that need deep work on a Wednesday in Asana, and then when I go to Asana, or when the day comes and I'm looking, okay, I got a big chunk of time, maybe 2 hours, I just go to Asana into those tasks, and I can see, this is the thing that I was looking to do on this day because of the time allotment that I would have. It'd be very hard for me to do any of these things if they were scheduled on a Thursday. So that's kind of how we put the boundaries of when to work, what the expectation is for the people that work with me, and as well how to manage emails, because emails is such a big part of our culture. So we don't talk on WhatsApp or iMessage or anything like that for work. We keep that for personal stuff, keep that for your friends and for your family, and then just keep the Slack for work when you're working, when you're actually supposed to be working.
Wow, you're obviously very, very disciplined. I'm curious, has it always been that way? Is that, I'm thinking back to young Bart, growing up, you've created this incredible system for your company, but obviously, that came from somewhere. Were there any influences or any turning points in your life, or are these, learned and discovered findings based on your experience in business so far?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I've always loved systems. I was the guy who, in school the first day would like put a ledger on the first page of like where everything would be, and then like take whatever, you know, the course material would be, and just like, well, I said it was going to go on page 65 in this empty notebook, so I'm just going to flip to that page so that it would match the ledger that I would lay out. I think part of it is also, I had as I like to say, a misspent youth. I got into a lot of trouble, as much as people want to think that I'm very disciplined and calm and mild-mannered. And I think I had to be very disciplined so that I can do the crazy stuff that we would do, so that my parents are immigrants, so grades and education is everything. I brought you here to have a better life. So we would skip class. We would go drinking down in Brampton. I can't name places. I don't want to name too many places. But at the same time, if my grades slipped, no bueno. So I had to be very organized, even from when I was in high school, to make sure I had all of my work done and completed. That when the teacher says, you weren't here, I'd be like, but I have all the notes, and I prepared for the test, irregardless. Just don't call my mom, right? So the teachers are very forgiving if you are very studious. If you miss class, don't take that, as a note, kids. But at the same time, as I became more aware of working in a company, I realized the most successful people were people who were organized. So I worked for Walmart, I worked for Staples, both in their creative departments when I was younger. And I just saw how it was very systematized, how everything would operate, how they would have agendas for the meetings, the difference between a stand-up meeting and a sit-down meeting, the difference between a check-in and a report meeting, what would happen in these meetings, and how the secretaries or note-takers would take notes, and how they'd be distributed, and how action registers. This is before we had project management tools and stuff like that. It's like an Excel spreadsheet that everyone would just check, and you would find where yours was. And then if it was highlighted yellow, that means it was pertinent, and if it was green, that means it was completed, and if it was red, it was late. Like, it was just very, very basic, a register of every action that needs to be required or that we spoke about that someone might ask you about later. I took that into working in churches, and the last place I worked before I started my business, they were very keen on personal development. We would read books together as a creative team. And it ended up being really, really beneficial. Essentialism by Greg McEwen, Start With Why, Simon Sinek, books like that, putting structures to thoughts. And that's where my mind kind of got open to, whoa, okay, it's not just for time management, but organizing my thoughts so that I can be, quote unquote, creative on demand. Because my job is a creative role. How can I be creative on a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? Well, you have to set systems in place for that to happen. One of the greatest things I ever learned while reading about some of these things, Todd Henry, I'll give credit to him, is going for a walk on your lunch break. You have to clear your mind and not be thinking about the problem to find the solution sometimes. And when you're on a time crunch continually, especially if you've worked in any nonprofit or church space, time is like everything, because we're always a dollar short and a day late on when we get the information we have to do it. You need to be inspired continually. Well, are you systematizing how you continually stay inspired? What things are you looking at? Back in the day, 10 years ago, Communications Art Magazine, whereas now we have things like Dribbble and Behance where you can look at things and be inspired and creative. And now we have the beautiful world of the cell phone where you can save things, save them on Instagram. If you see something that you like, bookmark something on your browser, and then I can go through them and catalog thoughts and ideas. And that's how you can kind of think about, organizing your thoughts. And that's where I kind of progressed from, like, it was a need to do for school, a have to do for work, and now it's like a way of life, so that I can actually get my mind clear. The last thing I'll say about this, 'cause I know I like to ramble a lot, is I'm somebody who has lots of thoughts and ideas. So if I don't categorize or capture the thoughts, they just evaporate, right? So as an entrepreneur, sometimes you have many things happening, and I don't think any human was meant to carry all that water. Like, there's no way you can carry all the things you're supposed to remember. So you have to have a way to digest it. And the only way that I've ever found on how to digest those things is everything that happens in my brain gets written down on this book and then eventually makes its way into Asana if it's something that has to get done. And so that's kind of how the discipline and the structure has kind of progressed through my life.
What a great answer. Yeah, you're definitely not rambling. That was all gold. And so I want to move that forward into your business now. Let's think back to 2017, agencies getting started, you're leaving your other job. What has the transformation of your systems and processes looked like as your team has grown, as your role as a business owner has changed or been realized? I'm curious how, your actual process improvement, what you're delivering to your clients, and how that's all changed, based on your history and your findings and all the experience that you're bringing into this position.
Yeah, about a year into me doing this on my own, I saw a message on Twitter from somebody that I followed and admired, Dave Shrine from the Blocks Agency in Arizona. And he was looking for people that wanted to be mentored. And I'm like, hello, I'm floundering here. I'm making just enough money to pay my bills, and I don't feel like I'm making any progress. So he was like, for sure, let's do it. I have a round table where there's multiple of us on this call, and we all share a problem that we're having, and we get collective feedback, and I'll obviously share my expertise. This person was probably, a few years ahead of me in the process and much more successful than I am. And one of the best lessons I've learned from him was the greatest obstacle you're going to have to overcome as somebody who is a creative entrepreneur, a solopreneur, is going to be, how do I make a system so that I don't have to be the sole decision maker? Because more often than not, if you're an entrepreneur that's looking to grow, you are the bottleneck. You know what I mean? There's no other way to put it. So at the beginning, it's very easy to identify because you're the only person in the system. So obviously, I am the bottleneck. But as you start to add one other person, it's like your sole job is to serve that one person. You now work for them, actually, even though you're the one paying them and they work for you, but you actually work for them. And you have to set them up. You have to set them up so that they can do the role specifically, do the role well, and repeat it. Because the only thing that you're going to be able to scale is not your name. It's not even like your logo, your brand. The only thing that is scalable in your business is a repeatable product or service. So is the quality the same? Is it good? And can you deliver it every time when you say you're going to deliver it? Those things, that's the only thing that matters, because, the client or the person that you're talking to is not concerned about how many awards you've won, if it's 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. But they are very concerned about their project, their timeline, and what they get out of this deal and this transaction. So that put my brain into a different world in terms of, okay, I got to make sure, I have a product, like what is the signature offering of my business, to use marketing terms. And I had to take a second and say, well, what do I want to be known for? What are the things that I really care about? And the two things were branding and web design. So we dropped the graphic design, and we dropped the, for the most part, graphic design. We don't advertise that at all. Graphic design and video. Okay. Even the strategy calls, the consultation calls dropped. We do strategy as the big umbrella, and the two solutions for the strategy is branding and web design. Anything after that, we normally bring somebody else in to get the job done. And once we started thinking about that, I hired one person to work for me part-time on a contract, maybe like 10, 15 hours a week. And basically they were right out of university, and I was getting them to do design work, and I got to the place where I was like, I need to figure out a way to make this all work together. So I was like, okay, let me get the Google Docs, and I think it was maybe like a Google slide deck that had like screenshots and like how to do a few things. And this is like very early stages with tools that we don't even use anymore. And that's what I would give to the first person that worked with me. And they used that for a while. And then for about a year before that person moved on, it was going okay. My sole focus was, okay, I got to take care of not just my family, I got to take care of Faria. And the issue is never Faria's fault. The issue is always, how do I get out of the way of my own success? You want more business? Then assign her the right thing so that you can focus on, procurement. You want to have more recognition or reach? Then make sure that you guys are working, that you're supporting her to create the right social media graphics. It's never, well, Faria didn't do, and Faria didn't do, and she didn't do, and she didn't do. It's always, well, what did you do to eliminate the bottleneck within yourself? And once you understand that, that's where you can kind of progress and kind of refine the core offering. And we had done that multiple times, and we had to shed a lot of layers of how we would do things. And I wouldn't even say we really felt confident in it, even though we've done so much transformation in year 2 and year 3, until May of this year. We started having conversations, Marquis, and it was like, okay, this is feeling a lot better. We are writing it down in a way that's clear. We're making it very simple. And then then we started the process of hiring 1, 2, 3, and 4 different people to work on the team. And I try my very best to, again, do the exact same thing as before. Get out of the way. If you trust them, then hire them. And if you hire them, then let them do their work. I've been the employee where there is somebody who is quote unquote my job, my employer, and they won't let me do my job. They're micromanaging. So the first thing I had to learn in hiring was, do you trust this person? Do you trust them that they can accomplish what they say they can accomplish? And if you hire them, then let them do their job and get out the dang way, yo. Because sometimes you're there thinking you're helping. I'm gonna ask you, have you ever seen this before? Somebody's moving something that they can clearly manage themselves, and you go and try to help them, and you're like, what are you? This is redundant. Go get the next thing that's in the car. What are you doing with? What are you doing with this? So it's like, stop trying to hold the grocery bag that they already have, and go get a new grocery bag. Get out of the way.
Wow, I'm trying to write down all these quotes. I'm getting so much here, but like a couple things I took out of that, and your team's obviously super fortunate to have you as a leader. Like you work for them. If you trust them, hire them. If you hire them, let them do their work. I love that just approach to team. And I'm curious. I mean, this is kind of like an offshoot, but like what would your team say is the culture? Like you're creating, it seems like a really positive culture. You understand systems and the need for them. You're giving your people, it sounds like, the autonomy to do their work, and just be accountable to those deliverables, right? So as your team has obviously grown, like what does the culture look like?
Yeah, we're very new with having a team. Basically, we hired a designer in maybe February, March, and then of this year, of 2021, and then we acquired or hired a developer, and then a project manager, and then a marketing admin, and. So those 4 roles are all new to us, and I think the oldest person is like 7 months, and the youngest person is 2.5 months in the company. So culture is very complicated. That's the one thing that I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to find some books on building culture, especially since we're all remote. These people have been hired remotely. I've only met one, and it was just last Friday, so for the first time. It's really cool for us to kind of, come together and do some type of work together. That's great. I love that. But I feel like there's something, I forget where I read this, but I'm not this smart, guys. I just read things and regurgitate it. Somewhere, I can't give credit to who it is, but they said the dignity of work, oneself works, a man works, a woman works so that they can provide a life and they feel good about themselves. That's the dignity of work. I aspire to provide that for people. So it's not just I do this thing, is okay, I feel good that I'm doing this thing. And I enjoy going to work. It affords me the life that I want to live. And so I feel good. And that whole dignity of work, and I think is what the tech industry has kind of tapped into in terms of making places livable, be like, just inhabitable. Like you think of Google and Facebook and all the different types of things that they have for their employees. It's so that there is dignity. I don't have to stress about childcare. Childcare is provided for me. They have meal plans and meal kits and places for me to relax, meditation rooms and all these different things. There is dignity in going to do your job because it provides you the life that you actually want to have. Nobody wants to work for the sake of work. If there wasn't a paycheck involved, I don't think at all that people like me that much that they would do this work. It's because there is a paycheck. So I want to honor that with one, taking care of them. You pay them a fair wage. Number two would definitely be considerate about their external life. I can't make it the main focus. This is a for-profit business, but I do care what's going on in your life. Like right now, our developer is in New Jersey. He's had a death in the family, and I've just been like, whatever you need for us to build something for a little bit so you can spend time, hire somebody else to take over some of this workload. Let me know whatever it is that you need. We talked about this in our check-in, and we just have these moments where we can kind of talk of state of mind, also including work that needs to get done, right? And I like to start in that order. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? How can I help you? Because I don't have the resources like Google does to buy you a meditation room and to pay for your childcare and all these different things. But I can just do the exact same thing in principle and show you human decency, treat you well as a person, and in turn, the effect is the same. You have the dignity of work, and so you perform better, right? That's the ultimate reason why these tech companies have these very lavish offices, is because the performance is there. So we do the same thing on a $0 budget, which is care for the people, show them that you're actually invested in their life, and they will actually invest into the company. Now we couple that with the boundaries we spoke about before. I don't want you to work when you're not working, but when you are working, I do care about you, and I do want to make sure that you're okay. Our culture is very casual. I'm a very casual person. It's not often that you're going to see me wearing a suit or a shirt and tie or even like a collared shirt. I'm usually a t-shirts and jeans guy, myself, but that's kind of the vibe. You're allowed to do that. Right, I got my clear glasses and my Apple Watch, so I'm set. But we have this rapport with each other. We like to use funny GIFs and memes inside of Slack. We would like to crack jokes. At one point, only two of us were still in Toronto or Toronto area. Everybody else, like our designer was in BC on a vacation. At the same time, our developer was in Orlando, and our marketing assistant was in Colombia. And me and the project manager, who were here in Toronto, like, everyone's just living their best life out here tanning. Like, we were just cracking up, having a good time, making fun of everybody when they came back. You're like, welcome, come to the humidity that we've been having here in the city of Toronto. And I think a few weeks ago I put in, which I stole from a previous podcast guest, the Starbucks card in the Slack, and I just put the caption as auto upload is activated on this card until the end of day. So do what you will with that information, and just post your pictures here for us to see what you're drinking. But yeah, we just try to have a good time, care for people, be genuine. Some of the principles of the company is kind of how we pour that into the staff as well.
That's amazing. Have you read the book Joy Inc.?
Why do I feel like I have?
Joy INC.
Meredith, what's the name of the author?
Richard Sheridan is the name of the author.
Okay,
It
I
talks
haven't.
all about culture. It kind of helps leaders, just to kind of figure out, what is culture? What do you want it to look like? Because whether you are thinking about it or not, every business has a culture. Is it a positive one, or is it one that people, we're
on the
dreading,
list,
coming to work? Yeah, Joy Inc. Really good read. I've read it a couple times now. Still lots in there I need to work on myself. We're getting close to time. I got a couple more questions for you here, but I really want to know this. I don't ask this question, but you kind of went there a little bit, and it ties into what Ditto really does, right? We help business owners realize their potential and live the life of freedom that they started their businesses to achieve. And so my question is, and you said it, but what is the life that you want to live?
The enterprise life, if that makes sense. It sounds, again, lavish. I think if you don't dream big, no one's going to dream big for you. So I want to be involved in multiple different spaces. I consider myself to be a creative thought leader. So the agency is one tool in a bigger tool kit. I want to be able to use my artistry or my creative, process or my creative mind for many things. But right now I have to build this thing. So knowing when to move to the next or when to add something is very key. Right now, I'm in the cycle. I'm halfway through the cycle point of, I don't know if anyone has coined this yet, but this is something that I've been working on in my own thought. You start off as the artist, and eventually, if you want it to be a business and not just a freelance thing, it grows into management, where I'm now manager of people, and I don't do as much art. So the cool graphic design and branding and web stuff that I used to say, look what I did, I now have to say, look what my team did. And then if I do a good enough job at this point, which is where I'm at right now, I get to come back to the artistry, because then I can come back, I can hire a manager to run the company. There's a project managers or account managers to understand how to do the management of the people and the clients. I can hire a salesperson, and then my time is freed up to then be like the art director who can parachute in, offer the direction, help people do this, and then parachute out and let them just handle it. But I have to do a really good job at this middle point, which is the management. You go to artistry to management, back to artistry. And that's kind of my goal for CP. I also have the podcast, which again is kind of talking a little bit about what we talked about at the beginning. Everybody wants this life, but the podcast is called the More Life Podcast. Shameless plug. But it talks about... Yeah. Beep. But yeah, people want to have this quote unquote life, nomadic or creative or whatever. And at the same time, they want a healthy relationship. They want to have, families, or they want to travel. They want to find themselves. They want to do personal and self-discovery. So how do you have all of the things? And that's kind of how this show started. That's a passion of mine, helping people balance their time and their passion. And there's more things to come, in terms of what I want to do. But I feel like you do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. And right now I have to do the agency and do it well so that I can do everything else that I want to do later down the line. Hopefully that makes sense.
It absolutely does, and I'm just going to write that down. Do what you want to do. You put it a little bit differently, but Michael Gerber beat you to it, the author of the E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited, E-Myth Mastery. You talked about the artist and the manager. He talks about the technician, right? The guy that's, doing the work, and maybe it's... a mechanic, let's just use it, right? He's fixing the cars. Then there's the manager or the supervisor overseeing his work that doesn't maybe know how to do all the things a technician can do, right? And then there's the entrepreneur, the owner of the garage, right? And then there's a certain time and a certain point where, those different roles, maybe the technician thinks he, can do it better than the manager or do it better than the owner, right? But doesn't realize all the other behind the scene things that you need to understand and, manage to, be a success. So
I own that book twice and I have yet to read it. I bought it on audiobook and I forgot that I bought it on audio and I bought it on my Kindle. This is the type of life I'm living right now. I gotta read these books.
I read it at least once a year. And if you, stop everything. Joy Inc. is great, but read the E-Myth first. It honestly changed my life. Like, the man is, and it's common sense, but you just don't think about it. It changed my perspective on business. Wow. As we're getting close to the end here, I just want to know, we're talking about systems. We already talked about some of the tools you're using. What are 2 tools that you can't live or run your business without?
One is Asana. That's facts. I remember when Asana was first launched or was new. It was 2014 or end of 2013. I had just started working at the last company that I worked at, and every Tuesday somebody needed to share something cool that they found online. And it was my first week or maybe my second week working, and that's what I saw somewhere, like a Facebook ad or something of Asana, this brand new project management tool, and they had like a little explainer video, and I was just like my mouth was just completely ajar, like, wait, because I've used Basecamp before, but this looked like Internet 2.0. If you're in the web space, you know what I mean, where it didn't look bad. It looked like, wow, rounded corners and gradients. How could this even be? And did it look like Windows, right? Like, it looked like it was made for a Mac by people who use Macs. And I fell in love. That's probably the number one thing that I would probably want to use or say is my tool that I cannot live without. The number 2 thing is a new acquisition. I would normally say in this point Adobe Creative Cloud, but sorry, Adobe, you didn't sponsor me when you had the chance. I'm gonna go with Figma. Figma just has rocked my world as a branding and web design agency. In terms of creating art that I can turn into a website or turn into whatever, social media posts, graphics, slide decks, Figma has rocked my world. And I started using it for like a week after somebody on my podcast mentioned it. And I'm kind of like, the reverse old head now, where when I came into school, Adobe was the new cool thing and all the teachers were still trying to teach us Corel and Quark Express and all these different things. And now I'm kind of, for many years, for like 2-3 years, I was thought that, Figma was kind of like too new, like Adobe's the real deal. And then I used it for a day and a half. And I immediately messaged my designer and my developer. I said, never talk to me about Adobe XD ever again. I signed you up for Figma. We built the team. Transfer all the files.
I want to hear more about that because, we're going to have a conversation about branding. I think we need a part 2 to this. We don't have enough time. I'm having such a good time just chatting. Man. Where can people find you online? Obviously, you already plugged the More Life podcast. Go and listen to it. Where else do you hang out online where people can connect with you?
Yeah, if you're on IG, BartAnestin.com. or Bart Anestin on IG rather. But if you go to bartanestin.com, you'll find everything there. The business, the podcast, all the YouTubes, just Bart Anestin.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today. Thanks for being on the show. I've appreciated this. I'm definitely going to have you back at some point in the future.
Yeah. Let's do it, man. I love it.
Amazing. All right. Bye for now. If you like what you heard today, please like, subscribe, and follow on your preferred channel. If you know of a friend or colleague that would benefit from hearing this conversation, please share it with them so that we can reach more listeners just like you. As always, all the links from today's talk will be in the show notes. And remember, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. We'll see you next time.